Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Lorna Willis with RE/MAX Finest Realty, and this is your July 2026 market update for Kingston and the surrounding communities. This month has a bit of a puzzle in it. Kingston's average sale price jumped over 9% in a single month, but the number of homes that actually sold dropped 6. Those two numbers moving in opposite directions isn't random, and I'll walk you through exactly what's driving it. And stick around, because later on I'll show you why homes are still selling above asking price in one of our smaller markets, even when the average price there is pulling back. It's a good example of why the headline number alone doesn't tell the full story. Let's start with the big picture from Kingston and Area Real Estate Association's own numbers. Across the whole board, 309 homes sold in July. Essentially, that's flat compared to a year ago, down just 0.3%. The average price across the board came in at $658,000. That's up 7.4% year over year. On a seasonally adjusted basis, sales activity was actually up 8.4% from June. So keep that in mind as we go through the individual communities. Some of what looks like a monthly decline in the raw numbers is a normal seasonal pattern, not a market genuinely slowing down. One number worth watching closely: months of inventory. We're sitting at 5 months right now. That's up slightly from 4.9 a year ago and way up from just 1.1 months back in July 2021 at the height of the pandemic market. That's the clearest sign of how much more room buyers have today than they did a few years ago. The sales to new listings ratio backs that up too, 43.5% this month, a fairly balanced reading compared to the high 70s that we saw in July of 2020. Now, let's get into the individual communities. July is usually one of our quieter months for real estate. A lot of buyers and sellers are away at the cottage or on vacation, and this year was mostly no exception. Kingston's transaction volume was down 16% from June. Loyalist was down 24%, and South Frontenac dipped slightly too. But Greater Napanee didn't get the memo. Transactions there actually jumped nearly 32% month over month. On the macro side, the Bank of Canada held its key interest rate steady at 2.25% on July 15. That's the sixth hold in a row. That kind of stability tends to keep buyers moving in a measured, steady pace rather than rushing in or pulling back sharply. And I think that shows up in this month's numbers. Activity cooled a bit, but nothing looks like a panic in either direction. Kingston also picked up some good news on the supply side. The city was awarded $3.2 million from the province this month for exceeding its housing construction targets. That's part of the broader push to keep pace with population growth here. Homes priced under $750,000 have generally been selling more steadily than homes priced above that threshold. That pricing dynamic helps explain some of what can look like conflicting price and volume signals in the numbers below. Kingston is where that headline number lives. So let's unpack it. Average sale price was up 9% over June and up more than 10% from a year ago. On the surface, that looks like a hot market getting hotter. But look at what else happened. Transaction volume fell 16%, and average days on market for homes that sold jumped almost 40% in a single month. That combination, fewer sales, longer to sell, but a higher average price, usually means one thing. The mix of homes that closed this month shifted towards higher priced properties. And not that every home in Kingston suddenly got more valuable. In fact, 29 homes sold over $1 million, and 8 of those sold over $2 million. Kingston's average price is only up 0.2% year to date. So don't read July's 9% jump as the market suddenly repricing. It's a reflection of which homes happened to close this month. That lines up with the regional pattern I mentioned earlier. Homes under $750,000 are generally moving faster, so a month where fewer of those lower-priced homes close will naturally pull that average up, even without home values actually rising broadly. As always, that days on market figure only reflects homes that sold. It doesn't include listings that are still sitting active, which tend to be the ones priced too high. Loyalist Township gives us an interesting contrast to Kingston. The average price actually pulled back 14% from June, but the share of homes that sold above their asking price more than doubled, from under 8% to nearly 21%. So fewer homes sold overall, and the average price dropped, but the ones that did sell were more likely to spark competition. That tells me that buyer demand for the right property in Loyalist hasn't gone anywhere. It's just concentrated on a smaller set of well-priced listings this month, rather than spread across the whole market. The bottom line for sellers here, price it accurately, and you can still see multiple offers even in a slower month. For buyers, be ready to move quickly when the right listing shows up, because those are exactly the ones drawing competition. One more thing I want to flag, and I'll say up front, this is anecdotal. Not something showing up in the average price numbers yet, but when I look at individual sales rather than aggregate figures, I'm starting to see a handful of homes here that last sold in 2021 or 2022, near the peak of the market, and they're coming back on the market now for less than what the owner originally paid. Loyalist has a fair amount of new build inventory, and the new HST rebate only applies to new construction, not resale. Some buyer demand is shifting toward those new builds, which can add pressure on comparable resale homes competing against them. Loyalist's year-to-date average price is basically flat, so this isn't a market-wide trend that I can point to in the numbers, but at the individual sale level, it's a pattern worth watching, and it can be a sign that some sellers are under real financial strain. Napanee is the market that bucked the summer slowdown. Transaction volume was up nearly 32% from June, and slightly ahead of where it was a year ago, too. But there's a catch, and it's a big one. Average days on market for homes that sold jumped to 65 days, by far the longest of any market we cover this month. And that's not a one-month blip. Napanee's average days on market is running 27% ahead of last year. Remember, that figure only counts homes that actually sold. It doesn't include listings still sitting active, so the real gap between well-priced and overpriced homes in Napanee is likely even wider than it looks. If you're selling in Napanee right now, pricing accuracy matters more here than almost anywhere else in the region. Homes are moving, but buyers are taking their time. Looking at individual sales rather than the averages, a portion of the homes trading in Napanee right now last sold back in 2021 or 2022, closing for less than the original purchase price. Napanee also has a good amount of new build inventory, so the same HST rebate dynamic applies. New construction is getting more competitive against resale. Napanee's year-to-date average price is actually up over 5%. So again, this is not something that the numbers confirm at a market level. It's an observation from... Now, cottage season keeps carrying South Frontenac. Average price is up close to 10% from a year ago. Transaction volume is up over 20% year over year. And homes are selling much faster than they did last July. Average days on market is down 38% from a year ago. Terminations, listings that were canceled or expired, are up noticeably year to date. So not everything's moving, but for well-positioned properties, especially waterfront and cottage-adjacent listings, this remains one of the strongest, fastest-moving markets in the region. Quick note before we get into Stone Mills, this is a low-volume market, so a single month's numbers can swing hard based on just a handful of sales. With only 14 transactions in July, one or two lower-priced properties closing can pull the average down sharply, and that's exactly what we saw. A 27% monthly drop. I wouldn't read too much into that 1 month figure. Year-to-date, average price is down a more modest 4.4%, and that's a far more reliable read on where Stone Mills is actually trending. Gananoque's monthly transaction volume is low enough that I always default to year-to-date figures here rather than a single month. Through July, average price is up over 10% year-to-date, and a median price is up a little bit more than 8%, but transaction volume is down almost 12% over the same period last year. Fewer sales pushing a higher average is, again, a mix-and-shift story, more than a broad repricing. So treat this as directional for Gananoque rather than a precise read on values. So let's pull it all together. If you're buying, several of our markets give you a bit more breathing room this month. Longer days on market, fewer competing offers in Kingston, Loyalist, and especially Napanee. That's a real window to negotiate. If you're selling, accurate pricing still wins. The homes moving fastest and drawing multiple offers, whether in Loyalist or South Frontenac, are the ones priced to market from day one. Overpricing this time of year, when so many buyers are away, is the fastest way to end up sitting. And Napanee's numbers this month are a good reminder of that. If there's one thread that ties every market together this month, it's this: don't stop at the average. Kingston's price jump was a mix shift, not a repricing. Loyalist's price dip actually hit a jump in bidding wars on well-priced homes. And Napanee's rising sales came with buyers taking a lot more time to commit. The number on the surface rarely tells the whole story. The story is how these figures move together. That's it for July. If you're thinking about buying or selling in Kingston, Loyalist Township, Greater Napanee, South Frontenac, Stone Mills, or Gananoque, reach out. I'm happy to walk through what these numbers mean for your specific situation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next month.
Hey, if this information has been helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning into the Kingston Real Estate Insider. Stay smart, stay local, stay ahead. Catch you in the next episode.